Matt, you are considered a one in a million because you're the guy, the first guy, who really started doing something extraordinary in the world of classical music. Made your debut as a classical cellist with the Israel Philharmonic at 13, and then your debut with the New York Philharmonic, but then you kind of went rogue. Tell us about why you decided to take a different path.
The rogue part, I suppose, was back in 2000 when I had been recording for Deutsche Grammophon for about 10 years exclusively, and it was an upheaval, I would say, in the record industry, or you could also describe it as an implosion. So my contract had just finished. I had just a couple of years before that completed my undergraduate studies at Harvard University, and I'd met my wife, a composer, Luna Pearl-Wolf. And it was just at the time where we also were thinking about embarking on a joint project and sort of combining her compositional background, my performance background, into something that would be organic and would allow us to do something together. And so we thought, okay, let's start a record label. And so that was back in 2000. We started with two different projects. One was a fine art book and recording called Lemons Descending, music for soprano and cello, and working with a visual artist, so it was kind of a multimedia project of sorts.
And that was very early for this kind of thing. There wasn't much of that going on.
Back then, it was, in classical, it was rare.
Very rare.
It was rare. It was happening a lot with singer-songwriters, and it was happening with indie bands already, but classical was sort of the last frontier for that. I mean, it was still, the majors were still putting out most of the recordings back then.
So there was no map to tell you how to go and what to do.
Oh, we had no idea what we were doing. So we started with that first project, and I had decided that I wanted to record the Bach cello suites before, or by the time I turned 30. And I had just turned 30, and so had played them in Germany to some success in the big anniversary year of Bach, and thought, okay, I have something very personal to say with these pieces. Let's record them. And then we had these two recordings. We had these two projects, and we thought, well, we need a name for our company. And that whole process was, a learning experience in terms of trademarking and just finding a name that isn't taken already and all that. After having these two projects, and especially with the Bach, I wanted to play this music in public. And I took it to the management at that time, and they essentially told me that there would be no chance don't even think about it. There's no desire or need for many promoters out there to present solo Bach suites at that time. And Dvorak concertos, we can get you as many as you want, but Bach suites, forget about. There's just no need for it. I said, well, what am I going to do? I've just recorded this music, and I want to go and support it and play it, and sell the recording. And there was nothing we could do through the classical establishment channels or infrastructure. So Luna and I sort of put our heads together, and we thought, well, we were living in Western Massachusetts at the time, and even with the record label, we were inspired by a lot of the independent movements with the singer-songwriters and folk acts. So we thought, well, why don't I call the promoter at the Iron Horse Music Hall, which was a coffee house club in town in Northampton, Massachusetts, kind of legendary. Well, they never really presented any classical music, but they presented all kinds of different other genres. And I called the promoter and suggested, well, at the very least, let's have a release event, like a little party for the Bach suites. And he said, well, are you sure anybody's going to come? And I said, well, I can guarantee you that, my students from UMass and, so my family will come and we'll buy a lot of beer for you, and, we'll make, sure there's a few people there. And the response was unbelievable. It was electric, and it sold out very quickly. And it was like the hottest ticket. People that were there, there were a lot of classical music audience that was there for the very first time, and there were jazz music lovers and indie rock people who would never go to hear the symphony, and so it was sort of this incredible electricity in the room. And with that experience, I knew that, you know, we had hit on something, that this was something that may have been a need for classical music to sort of change the routine and reach out to new audiences and just strip away some of the barriers that had been built up, you know, over a couple decades. Yeah. So that's how it started. That was back in 2000.
And how did you market it to those groups? How did they even know about that it was going to be happening? Was that your own marketing, or did that come from the venue?
No, the venue has their sort of standard marketing where they put you on their poster for the month, but their audience didn't really know who I was and what a solo cello concert was. I had already built up a certain reputation in my own world, in the classical world, so, you know, I could also call up the radio, you know, John Montanari at WFCR at that time and in Amherst, and go and do an interview and let people know, and the critic at that time, you know, from the Springfield paper and from the alternative paper in town, you know, got excited about it, and people just started writing about it, and so the word got out.